Hey everybody, it's Christina. Welcome to day 3 of our challenge. I hope everyone's doing well. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. We're in the middle of the week right now. Everybody's been doing such a great job of working on their worksheets and doing some journaling over the past couple days. And guess what? I got a little bit more for you. So, but today's live stream is probably going to be a little bit short comparatively, just because there's some different other things that I really want you to go through. One is a interview that I did with the shaman, who also happens to be my aunt. She's a lovely, lovely lady. She's been doing a lot of work with ancestral healing, especially in my family lineage, which helps everybody, not just me, but it helps everybody too. Okay, Holly's here, Louine is here, Vanessa's here, Faith is here. Excellent. Everybody's on it today. Wonderful. So I don't know if anybody had a chance. I did go ahead and send out the call replays and stuff like that in the worksheets. Has anybody actually had a chance to listen to the interview that I did with Lois, or listen to the ancestral healing with Archangel Raziel? Azrael, not Raziel. I was talking about Azrael and Raziel with Rachel the other day. Hey Paula, I got your inbox. I got your message. I was going to reply after this. Rachel says, Happy Wednesday. Jennifer says, hi. Faith says, so excited I haven't peeked at my daily check yet. Yep, your daily check is $10,000. $10,000. Rachel says, not yet. It's been nuts today. It has. This week has been crazy busy for me too. And I know you're doing the series, so there's a lot of good stuff going on right now. It's good to be busy, right? It feels like there's pressure, but it's good to feel busy too. Paula says, I deleted it. Didn't think you got it. Oh no. I saw it, and I'm going to reply to it. I'm not going to let you get away that easily. Lorraine says, happy spending. So excited to have half of it spent and pondering the remainder. Yeah, so when I did let's see, how many times have I played the money game so far? I have played the money game, I think this is my 4th or 5th time this year playing the money game. The first time I got stuck at 1K. I was like, I don't know what to do. And then the second time I got stuck at 1K again. The third time I got stuck at 10K. And then the fourth time I got stuck at 100K. I haven't made it to the $1 million yet. That actually felt feasible. You'll notice a difference too in where you actually get stuck, because yeah, sure, you can spend it, but is it easy for you to spend? Is it easy? Is it comfortable for you to spend? You really want to pay attention to where that threshold is. We're going to talk about that today too, because basically, I guess I can let you in on the secret, but where you get stuck, because some of you might actually get stuck today, at the 10K, which is totally normal. That's totally normal. Remember, I got stuck at 1K the first time, so it just depends on your money story, the narrative, how you're doing with your money consciousness and how far you are into your business and how long you've been kind of working on these things. And where your threshold is where you are uncomfortable, and it's that point. Basically, it's that dollar amount that is your limit to how much you can sell per month. Okay? Per month. And some of you may even get stuck at the 100K, which is more like your per year. So, does that make sense with everybody? The first day is how much you get stuck. I haven't actually gone through this yet, but the first day is where you get stuck, on your daily. If you can't make $100 a day, then you're really stuck. But $1,000, that's what you can make every couple weeks. And then the $10,000 is how much you can make every month. And then 100K is what you can make every year. $1 million is the culmination of all of it. So Lorraine says, I've got that $1 million spent. You would be a good financial advisor. Rachel says, decided to keep playing past this until $4 billion on December 31st. Go for it. If you want to keep it up in the group, I'm all for it. Rachel says, it's funny. Feel like I lost a sale today because of price points, and we're going over that today. Yep, we are going over pricing today. Jennifer says, you and Rachel got me very busy this week. I love it. Yeah, we didn't do that on purpose either. I mean, the energy's just really good this week, so it's just funny. Paula says, I'm thinking that million sounds good too. Heck yes, it does. It does. And a lot of you are talking about, I've been paying really close attention to all the comments, and I've been trying to comment on everybody's thing, but the things that stick out the most to me is that a lot of you are dealing with imposter syndrome. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that. It's like, and so I figured today would be a really great way to kind of segue into pricing. And a lot of you are actually like, well, I don't even know what to charge. You know, a lot of you are at the point where you're just kind of like shooting in the dark, and you're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the walls and hoping some price point sticks, and just, you know, crossing your fingers hoping something sells. So today we're going to talk about pricing, and we're going to talk about the pricing in which you are most in alignment for right now. Joanna says, I got my partner to play the money game with me. Good energy. Awesome. Try to get my husband to play. Usually he pitters out like by the third day or so, but you know, it's still fun to have that supportive environment, that supportive partner to kind of, you know, invest their energy into your energy too. It's great. Pamela says, me too. I bought a house with it. Awesome. That's what most people buy, is they buy a house. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So day three, today is going to be interesting because it's kind of broken into two parts. While I couldn't figure out how to fit the ancestral and the pricing into, you know, separate days, ideally we would have done this on separate days. Like, ideally this would have been a 6-day challenge, but we like to keep it 5 days. So today it's just kind of like we're doing kind of two things at once. So it may feel a little disconnected, but that's why, because we're going to talk about pricing, and then we're going to talk about ancestral healing. So it is related, but again, today I'm just kind of trying to squeeze as much as I can into today, so we're on track for the rest of the week. Faith says, I played the money game a different way before. It was $1,000 day one, day two $2,000, and it went up by $1,000 a day. By the time I reached $24,000, I was exhausted by the amount of time it took each day to spend the money. It was a full-time job, and I had other things to do. Isn't that interesting? That is interesting. Yeah. Um, Ideally, the money game is played over a period of about a month, but I noticed that especially since this is going to be like a new concept for a lot of you, I just can't see doing that for a full month. You know, like 5 days, I can commit to 5 days. You know, but past that point, I'm like, yeah, that sounds exhausting, because at a certain point, you just get, the novelty starts to wear off, and you're like, it becomes a chore to spend the money. And as you said, Faith, it becomes a full-time job, which is interesting, because when you are a millionaire, sometimes it does become a full-time job of how you're managing and spending your money too. So it's interesting. Pamela says, I'll keep my mouth shut and keep cleaning. Faith says, by day 24, I dropped out. Yeah, no joke. I mean, wow. I mean, I'm sure you got a lot out of it, and I'm sure that it was energy well spent. But yeah, I can totally see why by day 24 you were like, especially if it was your first time ever playing, I can see why that was a big problem. Okay, so who has issues with pricing? Who is currently, okay, one of two things. Either you don't know what to charge, and you're just kind of doing what you see everybody else doing, and you're just not really sure if what you're offering has that same value of what you're trying to charge. Or two, um, then what's my train of thought here? The second way you can do this, if you already have offers together, but maybe you feel out of alignment with the pricing that you already have. So maybe you feel like you're charging too much, or maybe you feel like you're undercharging. That could be go both ways here. Jennifer says that the way Faith did it is how I've been doing it for the past 6 months. Yeah, that's how you actually do it. Talk to Jennifer about that too. She's awesome at the law of attraction and knowing like how to actually do the experiments. And how long is your certification, Jennifer? Dang, it's like long, right? It's like, isn't it like 2 years or something like that for it to do like the first certification and then the second certification for the law of attraction coaching. It's a pretty intense certification. Yeah, it's pretty intense, but you get a lot out of it, you know. Vanessa says, I do. Okay. Rachel says, I do, for sure. Realized I'm undercharging. Uh-huh. And Leonie says, me. And Joanna says, I don't know what to charge. Perfect. Okay. So the funny thing about pricing, and this is something that I had to kind of experience. Faith says, I feel aligned with my pricing, but it would like to be aligned with higher pricing. Okay. So let's find out if that is actually something that you can be in alignment with after like we do the worksheet. And I'm probably going to do the worksheet with you. At least I'm going to go over it and kind of talk through it. I don't know if I'll share my actual numbers. I don't know if I'm feeling that brave yet. But I'll at least go through with it with you and kind of show you how to do it. So pricing is interesting. I'm sure you realize, okay, so I'm going to start talking to the people first. We're just going to start from zero. I'm going to talk to the people who are kind of new to this. They don't really know what to charge. They're kind of trying to figure out their pricing, trying to figure out what the industry standard is on top of, you know, their qualifications, their certifications, their ongoing education, that sort of thing, that will increase your price and help you specialize in whatever it is that you're wanting to offer. So I'm speaking to these people first. Now, there are market trends. I was talking to Vanessa about this. Depends on where your storefront is. I can't neglect this part of it because it is important. Yes, on Etsy and basically on Etsy and Artfire and all of those storefronts that have a market base already built into them, even the hotlines could be considered a market trend type of storefront. There is a phenomenon that happens where there's really no such thing as competition per se, but there is what we call a market trend, and that just kind of talks about like the the highest amount that most people are charging and the lowest amount that most people are charging. And in most cases, you want to be like right in the center and just a little bit higher than what the market trend is if you want to attract those higher end clients who are looking for quality services, right? So when it comes to Etsy, when it comes to the hotlines, yes, there is a little bit of a market trend. Now, you have to realize that those sites are a lot different than owning your own business. Those sites, you are an independent contractor, meaning you are subjected to their market trends, you're subjected to their ability to market you, you're subjected to the specials that they run. You're an independent contractor, which means it doesn't mean that it means you work for them, but you're not an employee. You're still kind of constrained by their limitations, right? Does that make sense with everybody? But when you own your own business, then you have a lot more freedom to be able to adjust your pricing. And the pricing on Etsy and the hotlines is a lot different than the pricing in what we call the real world, where it's like you can charge whatever you want to charge, and there's not as much of there's not as much limitation about how much you can charge. Now, does that mean that there's not industry standards? No, it doesn't mean that. There are industry standards that kind of set the baseline. I've talked about this before. They're like the minimum amount that you really want to be charging to be at least up to par with everybody else who's doing a similar thing. But at the same time, you want to be slightly above that because those are, again, the baseline. Like, it's like the bare minimum of what you could be charging and what you could be making. And it's just a different energy once you start moving off of the hotlines and off of Etsy. It's just a whole different energy, and we're going to talk about that too. Vanessa says, can you charge different on Etsy and charge different on your site if you run both? Absolutely. Yeah, so what I recommend is we have a lot of readers in here, but healers and life coaches are all going to benefit from this information. What I recommend is when you're putting stuff on the hotlines and you're putting your listings on Etsy, I recommend that you do the least amount of work possible with those people. Those people that come to you off Etsy and off hotlines, those are the people that are they're the filler. They're the filler money that's going to support your bigger vision, right? So the hotlines and Etsy are really just to kind of get you some experience. They're just supposed to get you some experience with charging a little bit amount of money, and it's just like an introductory type of thing. Now, when it comes to Etsy, you know, unless you have like $45, $65, $85 readings on there, or packages or anything that's like $100 or more, it's going to be very difficult for you to sustain that for a long period of time, because if you're like me, you probably spent 3 hours, in the beginning at least, trying to type up and format a beautiful PDF that someone's only paying you $25 for at the most. You know what I mean? Unless you're doing some sort of in-depth analysis where you're doing palmistry or astrology or something like that, where you're talking about like a 10, 15, 20 page sort of like keepsake, that sort of thing. Now, if you're just doing your regular readings, the thing I can tell you is to stop putting so much damn effort into it, because the people on there, they don't want it. The Etsy is a lot like the hotlines in that they just want the information and they want it fast. If they want a really good quality reading, they know that they can go somewhere else and hire someone for that. But Etsy, again, is kind of like the hotlines. Now, Etsy is also, it's very difficult to sell life coaching on Etsy. A lot of you might be kind of like hesitant or avoidant to start calling yourself a life coach, because I mean, there's a million things that can run through your mind, like I'm not qualified to be a life coach, or I don't have a certification or training, or I don't want to tell people how to live their lives, I just want to read the cards and things like that. But in most cases, and you can talk to Rachel about this too, because I remember having this conversation with Rachel in the beginning of this year, and now she's offering life coaching. But here's the thing, is that typically speaking, if you care about your clients and you're putting that much effort into an email reading on Etsy, or an email, astrology reading, or whatever it is that you do, whatever you sell on Etsy, not just metaphysical services, but any type of spiritual service or product. It's funny because if you're spending that much time on it, you really are more of a life coach. You're really not just a reader, per se, because you put a lot of your heart into it, so you should get paid for that. So it becomes a difference in how you start marketing your services, and not just being your regular run-of-the-mill tarot reader, which is going to fetch you the lower prices. Now, when you start accepting and becoming a firm believer in developing your psychic abilities, that's one way to upcharge your services. As you're a psychic, you have these psychic abilities. How do you, it's not just reading the cards, but it's also gaining psychic information. If you are a life coach, if you're helping people make decisions in their lives, you're still a life coach, whether you want to accept that title or not. So if you're ever doing readings where it's like, or healings energetically, where it's like you're talking about different paths in lives and comparing and contrasting, it's like you're still a life coach. So a lot of it is coming to terms with and being able to actually distinguish what it is that sets you apart from other people, and what it is that qualifies you to charge those higher prices. That's how you're going to get it. So if you look at any of the TV psychics, so I sent a message out yesterday with MailChimp, right? And I talked about how I bought it was like $250. It was a reading from a psychic medium on TV, and I bought it for my mom for Mother's Day as a gift, right? And if you pay attention to the language, it can be anybody: Teresa Caputo, James Van Prague, John Edward, Lisa, what's her name? Lisa, is it Lisa Anderson? I can't remember what her last name is, but she's a really famous psychic and medium. And what you notice about these people is that they are very forward and out in the open about their gifts, and they have no problem actually telling people that they have psychic abilities, and that they have no problem actually telling people what it is that makes their time so valuable. And it all kind of comes back to that imposter syndrome that a lot of you were talking about yesterday as a reason why you're not getting those higher prices. And the truth is that you're not getting those higher prices because you're not you're not showing your value. Lisa Williams, thank you, Pamela, not Anderson, Williams. But you're not explaining your value to people, and you're not telling people why you're different. Okay, let me catch up on comments here, because there's a lot. Vanessa says, can you charge a different? We've already done that. So the $129 we talked about, is that more for my website or put it on Etsy? Here's the thing, Vanessa, is that I would stick that on your website, but I would also stick it up on Etsy. While here's the interesting dynamic on Etsy. So while you have the higher end products on Etsy, right, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to sell them regularly on Etsy. I mean, I'm just going to be honest, it's a little hard to sell higher end products, not products, services, to sell higher end services on Etsy. But putting it up on there, what it's going to do is it's going to make your lower priced options seem that much more of a good deal. So it's psychological pricing at its best. So you can stick it up on both, but I don't want to mislead you into, telling you that, yeah, you're going to sell 10 of them at the end of the month. That was never the case for me. The most I ever made off of like one reading on Etsy, I think was like $85, and it was a palmistry reading. So, there is that threshold. It doesn't mean that nobody is going to buy it. No. I mean, somebody might. But if you don't put it up, then you definitely don't have a chance to make that, right? Rachel said it's been more than one. Vivian, hi, good to see you. Jennifer says, ooh, yeah, I have my certification, and now I am seeing that I didn't need that certification to be a life coach. No, you didn't need it, but you still gained a lot of experience, and now that, and it was really, it's an exercise in investing in yourself. So yes, while it is more for you than the clients, it still adds value to your life. It still helps you justify charging more for your services, right? Victoria says, what if you're a tarot reader and the author? Should you charge more? Yeah, absolutely. For sure. For sure. Holly says, how much will people pay for a medium? So the prices that I see for mediums are around $100 for 30 minutes. Let me see how much that actually comes out to. Around $200 an hour for a medium, for sure. Like, without even blinking. Okay, so 200 divided by 60 is about $3 per minute. So 3 times 30 minutes, 90. So $90 for a 30-minute mediumship reading is pretty much industry standard. I mean, you're not going to have a problem getting that. Holly says, so I'm not far off at $197. Nope, you're not far off at all. Really, for you, it just comes, probably need some really good testimonials, and you probably need to work on your copywriting a little bit. That talks more about your psychic abilities. Marissa says, if you have psychic abilities that are a little different, in other words, not clairvoyant, does that make the readings less valuable to the tarot world? No, not at all. No, because the thing is, learning how your psychic abilities come in and being able to actually distinguish your psychic abilities, that's for you. That's not for your clients. They don't care about that. If you ask any person off the street, what is being psychic, they're going to pretty much have the same answer. They're not going to know the difference between that. But that's for you to be able to recognize how this is, how the information is coming to you, so you can explain it to your clients, right? But as far as like certain psychic abilities being different or certain psychic abilities manifesting in different ways, no, I wouldn't ever think that one type of psychic ability is, worth less than another, for sure. Vivian says, we'll see very good medium charging $50 an hour, for sure. Yeah, that's a little low, to be honest. I mean, they're not going to have a problem charging $50 an hour. It all kind of depends on how busy you want to be, too. So price is not just what you're worth, but it's like how much you actually want to work, too. So there's a weird thing that kind of happens, and a lot of you probably recognize this. When you raise your prices, there's always a little bit of a lull, and it's because of a couple of things. First, people need to get used to seeing you at the new price. Like, you need to establish yourself as the expert at that new price. It just takes a little while. There's nothing really you can do about it other than just, maybe prepare people and say, hey, my prices are going up, or send out a blast that says, last chance to get me at this current price. I just finished such and such certification or training, or, I've just completed 4,000 readings, so now it's time to raise my price, something like that. But also, it's interesting what happens, because the higher your price, the less busy you're going to be. That's just how it is. So a lot of you who are used to grinding and getting 5 readings on the hotlines, it can be kind of a freak out moment for some of you when you start charging these higher prices, because what happens is you're going to start getting less clients, higher quality clients, and you're going to have more of a connection with the clients that you have. So it's different. And then it becomes a matter of, okay, do I need to do 10 readings at $10 a day for $100 to meet my income goals? Or do I do the one reading at $100 per an hour, and only see the one person, but I work less? And it can trigger a whole bunch of feelings of like, I'm not working hard enough, or again, yesterday with fear number 4, where it can't be easy or fun, and it has to be hard, it has to be difficult. So whenever you're raising your pricing, there is a little bit of a dynamic shift, an energy shift with that. And typically speaking, generally speaking, you're going to see less people, but you're going to give better quality services, if that makes sense. And that can be kind of freaky for some people to kind of get used to, who are used to meeting those specific numbers like every single day, or needy, or are really focused on the quantity versus the quality. Jennifer says, definitely don't regret it at all. There's no need to wait for the certification to be a life coach. For sure, for sure. But I'm proud of you for doing it, because that just means that your commitment to your life coaching business that's going to come through. That all comes down to marketing, that you're going to include that in your copy, you're going to factor that into your price. It's going to be a life experience that you refer back to forever and ever and ever, that re-solidifies the fact that you are justified to charge what you do charge. Victoria, I notice all the male psychics charge way more than women in my area. It's interesting, Victoria, you bring up something really, really interesting. And I think the bottom line for that is that men aren't, how can I say this and be politically correct about it at the same time? Men don't deal with the same BS that women deal with. Just to get up and show up every day for women is just like, it takes so much energy just to be a woman in the world, right? We have all of these things, like we feel like we have to look a certain way or be presentable, or, where men, it's like, they can pretty much just roll out of bed, shower in 5 minutes, and they're out the door. Like, there's not, when it comes to men, there's just not like this whole, they haven't had like thousands and thousands of years of programming to feel like they have to justify that. So men definitely have privilege when it comes to the ease of charging higher prices. And I think we can all take a lesson from that, because if the men can do it, then we can do it, certainly. You know what I mean? Rachel says they aren't afraid to charge their worth because they're naturally more masculine oriented most of the time, and their fire, air elements are on point. For sure. Rachel says women struggle with it more. Absolutely. Because we have to not just justify it to not just to our clients, but we have to justify it to ourselves too. Holly says the privilege of confidence, for sure. For sure. For sure. Okay, so I'm just going to throw some pricing at you, because I think you need to probably think about this, and just think about this in terms of where you're at. Now, I'm not like trying to make you feel bad. I'm not trying to push you to raise your prices. Honestly, you're going to raise your prices whenever it feels good to you. Your pricing is naturally going to raise as your confidence builds and your experience builds. So I am not I'm just going to say this right now. I am not one of those coaches that is like, you need to charge multi-$100 and you need to charge it right now. And, I see all this crap out there from women, well-meaning women and men, but mostly women. It's weird. But I see this crap out there all the time, and they're like, if you don't charge high-end prices, then you're ruining it for the rest of us. And, there's all of this insecurity out there about charging low prices. And I'm not like that at all. Like, I get why people charge low prices. I've been there, and sometimes charging low prices just makes sense. I mean, the lower your pricing is, the less you have to market, the less you have to tweak your copywriting, the less you have to technically show up, because your pricing becomes a no-brainer. Does that make sense? Pamela says advertising is now working on the men and their appearance. It is, and we've seen, it's interesting. We've seen this year and last year, we've seen the very first commercials coming out with makeup for men and things like that. So, it's interesting how that dynamic is shifting as more and more women become brave. I'm not going to comment too much about that, because I don't want to derail us and go off on this other tangent. But yeah, for sure. it's just interesting to kind of witness it. Rachel says, I was just debating with myself on whether to raise Zodiac again and how to get more behind my course's original price, just struggling with it today. Yeah, and the thing I have to say to you, Rachel, is that you're doing awesome for where you are. I mean, you're doing way better than I was in my first year. Like you right now, you're probably in my year 3, my year 2.5, 3. So you're doing awesome. I know it feels like there's not a lot going on, especially like struggling with the introductory price for your course and things like that. But I promise you that everything is working out to build that momentum. You start with the small snowball, push it down the hill, and then it becomes a big snowball. Rachel says, mainly because I should be charging 397 to 497 for my courses as I put 60K into my education. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can charge whatever you want to charge, but we're going to go into that here in a little bit. So hold on, don't let me get too ahead here. So the minimum prices that you should be charging is around $100 an hour. That's industry standard. Whether it doesn't matter what service you're doing. If you're doing any type of specialized consulting, $100 an hour. 97 is what I did for readings, and then 55 for a half an hour. So that's the bare minimum, and those are live readings. Okay, that's phone, live healings, live meditations, live spiritual coaching, live life coaching. 97 an hour. Okay, so that's the industry standard. Anything above that, what I see the most is I see around $100 an hour for readings and healings. And then I see when you start getting into like life coaching and getting into the more of the transformational process and things like that, I see people getting into around $250 an hour, and then I see some people selling around $400 an hour. But I'm just gonna be honest, the people that I see pitching with $400 an hour, I mean, it's like they always, I don't really know if they're getting $400 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, I don't know if it's a ploy. I don't know. I've got to work on my mindset about that a little bit. I'm just going to be honest with that. But what I see for us in our industry standard is around $100 to $250 per hour. Isabella says, I hear that you should make 10 times more than you invested, that is, but I'm going to make 100. I'm good to make 100 in a month. It is crazy because I have been doing this for 16 years. I mean, it is my first business year. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so Lorraine says, time to raise my prices. Okay, so let's just look at this. So now that a lot of you have the hotlines to kind of like compare and contrast, so most hotlines, I mean, you're going to be charging around $2.99 per minute, right? Times 3. No, $2.99 per minute times 60. Math is hard. Times 60. So that's $179, which is like right there in between that $100 and $250. Okay, this is what people are kind of used to paying. You know, for psychics, for people who are spiritually inclined, anyways. So it just kind of depends. Now you kind of want to put your one-off sessions at a higher price than your packages. So for me, it's $9.97 for 3 months. Let me see how much that actually breaks down. Right now I'm $197 for a 1 hour, and usually it's not just 1 hour. Usually it can go anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, which is $197. Okay, so divided by 6, which is $166. Okay, so when you start talking about packages, and at the end of December, we're gonna do a workshop on packages and courses and things like that. But for me personally, I'm at $197 for an hour for anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes. If they need technical support, if they need that extra little, we need that extra little time, I'm totally cool to give it to them. But if people sign on a 3-month package with me, they get 6 calls, and it's $9.97. So 6 calls divided by $9.97 is $166, which is minus $197. That's a $30 savings per call. So you always kind of want to strategically price your packaging too. Victoria says, should you raise your prices all at once or little by little? It totally depends on what feels good for you. If you raise your prices too fast, then you risk people not associating you with that new price. You risk not feeling in alignment with that price, which could sabotage your business. So, whatever feels good to you. If it's long overdue, like, I need to know more about you and your business. But if it's long overdue and you've been doing this for 10 years and you've had the same pricing for 10 years, then heck yeah, you're ready for new pricing, because you already have that established clientele who are going to move with you to the new pricing, or they're going to fall away and they're going to go to someone else, which is, that happens too when you raise your prices. Sometimes people just, they can't afford you, you know, but it also makes room for people who can afford you to hire you. And it makes you seem more attractive to those certain people who want the higher quality. But if you're brand new, then, and this is your first year in business, I definitely don't recommend just like one day raising your pricing by $200 or something like that. Like, I definitely don't recommend it, because then you're just, yeah, you're not going to be in alignment with that. And if you haven't sold at a price yet, then you're definitely not going to be able to get it. So pretty much with the first worksheet, I guess we could go ahead and segue into the worksheet now. Okay, so the first worksheet is, I want you to tell me how much you're worth. I want you to tell me how much money you've spent on time and energy and money that you've invested in your education and your personal development. So any courses you've taken, any certifications, college, continuing education, work-study programs, scholarships, on-the-job training, internships, all of these things. All of these things that you've spent not just your time but also your money on. I want you to take that in consideration. I want you to add that all up. And for some of you, that might be scary, because a lot of you have probably spent a lot on courses and stuff like that you haven't really actually looked at it before and seen how much you've actually invested in. I would say I've invested around, I think, around $15,000-$16,000 in my education. Now, when it comes to like on-the-job training, okay, so I've been in business for myself since I was 19 years old. So I have 11 years of entrepreneurial experience. I've been running my business in this industry since 2012, so that is 5 years. Okay, so I could probably say I've invested monetary value and time. I've probably oh no, I'm in tax school right now, and that was a big chunk of change. So okay, we're probably around like $25,000 or so that I've invested monetarily and in time into my education. If I count all the Doreen Virtue certifications I've ever taken, if I count all the decks that I've ever bought, and if I count all of the other certifications I've taken, like NLP and hypnosis, and what else have I taken? Numerology, and I've taken astrology courses, all the books I've ever bought for my business. I mean, I have books, I have expensive books like the DSM, I have sociology books, I have psychology books, I have just a whole bookshelf worth of educational material. So you want to take that into consideration, and I would say at least charge 10% of it. So whatever, it comes down to how you want to charge, and how you want to charge for it. So, but you also have to be in consideration of the content also, and the value of the content. So it's kind of like a formula that you're going to have to figure out yourself. I don't have the formula for you. This is something you're going to have to figure out for yourself, right? So we have a lot of people who have invested in themselves. Rachel says she spent $60K on college. Yeah. Lorraine says, I just did a reading for a reduced rate for a repeat client from my old pricing structure and felt so drained. It really didn't work for me. I hear you. I pretty much have gotten out of doing, I've pretty much divorced a lot of my clients this year. I've pretty much, since 2012, I've had a really steady stream of clients, and they're all at the old pricing, $25 for a 3-card reading. Takes me about 30-45 minutes to type up, and honestly, it's like, at this point, I'm turning down one-on-one clients for $1,000, so it's like, I just don't have the time to do $25 readings anymore. And it's like, it's weird, because clients don't understand that. They don't get it. It was good for them for a while, and it wasn't a problem then, and they don't understand why their money is not good now. And so it brings that energy to it too, and then it also brings the negative energy that that your time is worth more, and you could be doing so many other things to make so much more money, and that $25 just becomes like, almost becomes, at a certain point, it becomes not worth the money anymore. It's really interesting how that works. But yeah, you can just what I would do is I just send out a really nice email that says, hey, I've just completed this course, or, I've completed my certification, whatever you need to justify it, you know what I mean? And then be like, I'm raising my prices. These are going to be the new prices. This is the deadline to get me at the old price. And that can be a really great way to generate some quick money too, for sure. But yeah, it is. It always is kind of sad when you raise your prices and you kind of lose some people that you had a connection with, and they just can't afford you anymore. It always is a little bit sad, but at the same time, every time you raise your prices and you start attracting these new clients, you always start to kind of figure out that you like your new clients better, and you realize just how draining the old clients were, for sure. Holly says college alone was over 30K. Yeah, I dropped out of college. I did like 1 year, and then I was like, yeah, this is a waste of money. I'm not doing this. And then I went to beauty school. Faith says, including post-secondary school programs and courses, I've invested about 40K. Yeah, the longer I think about it, the higher it goes. So you want to factor in at least 10% of that for your highest end product. So for me, I've invested around between 20 and 30K. So it's not far-fetched for me to do 10% of that, which would be 2 to 3K for my highest end program, which means my one-on-one prices are very low. Pamela says, yeah, I'm right in line with my pricing, my animal communication, and my Reiki healing work. It seems I'm a bit low with the tarot, but it seems so new to me that I'm a little lower than that, but not too much. You mentioned talking about your psychic abilities and telling people about your gifts. That is something I need to do better at. Yeah, you do. And that goes back to what you said yesterday about confidence and not being affected by others' reactions. Yeah, oh yeah. Because, when you start talking about how amazing you are, you're going to trigger a whole bunch of people, and people are going to project their stuff at you. So it's always important to do some psychic self-protection before you raise your prices and before you redo your copy and things like that, and just mentally psych yourself into knowing that you're going to get some flack and it's going to be a little rocky for a little while, but after the dust settles, then it's just like, it's so much better. It's so much better. That being said, how do you work with or around the stigma associated with the word psychic? Honestly, the stigma doesn't come up for me. I mean, I am very open about my psychic abilities. I talk about my psychic journeys. I talk about all the development I've done. I've been on calls with people and done trainings and things like that. And I even taught psychic development for a brief minute in 2015 or something like that. I did like an introductory course on that. Might do something with that next year. But when you start talking about your psychic abilities, yeah, some people might get pissed, but you just block them and you move on. And the awesome thing is you're going to start attracting all these other people that do believe in psychic abilities and want to talk to you about it. So yeah, you might deal with some stigma occasionally. We're always going to have trolls. We're always going to have certain people that in certain situations that suck that we have to deal with and work through and process and like tap to kind of I love and accept myself. You know what I mean? Like, we have to do those sorts of things, but generally speaking, the more open you are about it, the more opportunity you're going to give to attract like-minded people. So maybe there's a little stigma at first, but I mean, not really in the long-term perspective. Lynn says, oh my God, it's scary to think I have probably spent over $50,000. I'm a lifelong learner, so that amount will continue to go up. Yeah, so you have a tons of life experience. So your one-on-one package should be $5,000. Pamela says, haha, I'm clearing up books right now. Have tons. Isabella says, okay, so here's a question. When they reset my random, they cleared all my ratings. I am at $3.99 per minute. I'm sorry, that's my phone. Let me mute it. They cleared all my ratings. I'm at $3.99 per minute. Should I lower it until I have more ratings again? I mean, you can. In those cases, again, like on the hotlines and Etsy, you kind of have to play the game. If you want, you could lower it to the lowest amount, wait till you get 5 ratings, and then put it back up at $3.99. Because I'm always the sure bet person. I don't really like to take the big risks and gambles, and I don't really like to have clients do that either, or even just people in this group. I'm a sure bet person. If you know that dropping your price down and getting those first 5 positive reviews are what's going to help you feel good about the $3.99 price. Because if you wouldn't even be asking me if you didn't feel good about it, right? If you weren't 100% confident about that. But there's some part of you that's like, I should lower it. Okay, so just lower it. Just do it. Just get it out of the way. Lower it to whatever the minimum is. I can't remember. It's like what, 199 or 249 or something like that. Get your first 5 people, and then from there you're up at $3.99 per minute, and then you won't go back and forth with yourself. Should I or shouldn't I? 3 weeks isn't going to pass where you're waiting for people to come in, and your energy. It's all about your energy and how you feel about that price for sure, and how comfortable you are talking about that price. Pamela says, same here, Lynn. Yeah, I believe it, Pamela. You are so knowledgeable. Pamela Thice says, 100K in debt for my MFA alone. That doesn't include any other things I've invested in my life for learning. Yeah, so, I mean, you are well educated. Holly says, that's funny. I dropped out of beauty school and went to college. Well, I'm trying to go back. I'm thinking in my 30s I'll probably end up going back and trying to finish my degree. But in my 20s, I just wasn't like mentally, I just couldn't do it. Like I did not emotionally and mentally value it. So I'm proud of myself for recognizing that wasn't valuing it. So now that I'm older, I can go back and make the conscious decision and actually show up and want to learn. Because when I was doing it, for me there was so much pressure on it, and I'm going to talk about that in the ancestral healing part of this. Is I didn't come from a family who graduated college. I mean, barely any person in my family has ever graduated high school. So graduating high school with honors and 3 years in the gifted program and being on track to join the Army at 17, I think I was 17 when I graduated. I think I was 17 or just turning 18 in 3 years. So that was enough. But then I was like, that was enough for me. And then I met my husband, and then I didn't ever join the service. And then basically I ended up trying to go to college, and there was just so much pressure put on me by my family because someone's got to do it. Someone's got to be the first one to graduate college too. And it was like all this pressure, and I was just like, I don't want to do it. I'm done. And so I'm really proud of myself. Thank you, Pastor Christina, for not going, 100K in debt for getting a college degree that I just didn't even know what I wanted to do. It would have been a waste for me at that time. Holly says, it's still uncomfortable for me to talk about being a medium, even though it's crazy how good I am. Why? Why is it uncomfortable for you to talk about being a medium? Lynn says, especially need to do psychic protection around family. Yeah, watch my video on 3 radical and rebellious ways to shift your spiritual business to the next level. It's good. I'm going to send it out with today's email. For sure. Pamela says, empath here. Yeah, it's really hard for empaths. Victoria says, own the word psychic, or the phrase that I am psychic. Yeah, and if it's not psychic, then, at least start saying you're intuitive, because you are. Let's face it, everybody here is psychic or intuitive. Faye says, Christina, quick, when you say one-on-one package pricing, are you suggesting 10% of what we spent on a monthly package price? That's up to you. However you feel justified to quantify that price, and however you feel like comfortable with spacing it out. Maybe for some people it's 1 month, maybe for some people it's 3-month package. It all goes back to how you feel about it. For me, generally speaking, I would say that's like your 3-month package right there. Now, it could be your 1-month package if you're that confident about it and you know that you're showing up in your business, you're providing value, you're not hiding, you're really making an effort to be visible in your business, and you really want those people at that price. Sure, you can get it. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from getting it other than how you feel about it. So for some people that might be their 1-month price. For some people that might be their 3-month price. For some people that might be their 6-month price. Okay, so it all kind of goes back to how you feel about it. But that's the price point in which I want you to kind of feel into and kind of work with. Betty says, I did my first public psychic dinner in October and it was amazing. Had a great time. Made about $500 in 2.5 hours time and gained some amazing new clients. Get out there and talk about yourself. I'm proud to be the local psychic witch in town for sure. The more comfortable you are with it, the more comfortable people are going to be spending that money on you, for sure. Isabella says, make total sense. Good. Holly says, I went to college after my divorce. I was in my late 20s. Yeah, that's kind of, a lot of women are doing that now. Paula says, I got my bachelor's just before my 59th birthday. That's amazing. Holly says, I guess I'm still not sure how people will respond to me talking to dead people. What people? Your family? Your friends? Who are you worried about their reaction? who who are you worried about? And why? And why does that matter? And is there something that you can do to make it to where you don't have to have that conversation with those people? Can you just, do can you put them on a restricted list, or, Lynn says, is it appropriate to mention I'm a witch? Absolutely. Own your witch card for sure. Own it. It makes you different. People, because then, especially with Reiki people, dang it, my phone, stop. Especially with Reiki people, if you have been certified in Reiki, maybe if you don't even like sell Reiki services, you can still say your tarot readings are infused with Reiki. You can still say your life coaching is infused with Reiki, because Reiki people, you get it. Like Reiki is just, it's the universal energy. It's available at all times in any way that you choose. So it's not just selling Reiki services, but it's also saying, hey, my readings are infused with Reiki. That's just a natural thing you're going to get. That's just a bonus, which makes your readings worth a lot more. Hi, Autumn. Good to see you. Holly says, I know it shouldn't matter. In all other areas, I don't care what people think. Yeah, so you have to kind of figure out why and who, and what's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that this is how I feel about it personally. If it's the worst case scenario is they stop talking to you, well, then they weren't your friend to begin with, and okay, so maybe they can't deal with you talking to dead people, but is that a reason to not talk about that, and to not be able to express yourself creatively, and not be able to express yourself in your business? And all of that's going to affect your earning potential. All of that is going to affect how comfortable people are with investing in you. The more you are out and prideful about how you are, and I don't mean prideful as in like pride before the fall, and I don't mean pride as in arrogant, but taking pride, in who you are and your interests, and giving yourself permission to show up in the world whichever way that you choose. And it's it's a very courageous act, and it's not easy. I don't want to say that it's easy to do that, but at the same time, it's the most liberating thing, and that's what's going to get you clients. Paula says, anyone watching The Healer, it's time to come out. What is that? Is that, what show, what channel is that on? I've heard people talking about that. Rachel says, witches unite. Yep. They may be able to burn one of us, but they can't burn all of us. Holly says, ha ha ha, I can do Reiki for your dead relatives. Yes, you can. You can also send Reiki to retrospectively, and regardless of time and space, and you can heal those relationships with people. So it really just comes down to understanding like your own abilities, and being able to talk about that, and put two and two together. Okay, it's on TLC. Let me write that down, because I want to check that show out. Give me just a second here. I'm writing it on a bill as we speak. Healer, TLC. My awesome IRS bill that I got last week. Jennifer says, Holly, my cousins tease me with saying I stretch and pray on rocks. It triggered me at first, but now that it's out, I have gotten over it. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It is at first. I mean, people are cruel. I'm not going to tell you that people aren't cruel, but you have to decide what's more important. Okay, so moving on. We've already been talking for an hour. Not that I don't love you and talking to you for an hour, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Marissa says, do you mention your Reiki training even for readings that don't include a healing package? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Pamela Thice says, for me, it's difficult because of trauma, childhood, age, and being misunderstood. I understand too that, I definitely understand that. I did a video in Heather's group about my psychic development story, and how I was the kid that was never invited to parties because I talked to dead people. So, yeah, and it was painful. It is painful. Finding ways to adapt, and more specifically in a very small redneck town. That's very difficult too. Now I'm back to living in that same redneck town due to some life circumstances, and now being asked to learn how to function in it again. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's like no sane person, I've said this a million times, but no sane person would choose this. You know, like there has to be something more. There has to be a calling inside of you to even put up with the BS of what we have to put up with just to run a spiritual based business. And especially in a society that is misunderstood, it's getting better. It's getting better, but it's still what we do is very greatly misunderstood, for sure. Lynn says, I do Reiki along with acupuncture. Yeah, so I want you to write down all of your certifications, all of your trainings, and I want you to think about how you utilize all of that in the sessions or the healings, whatever it is that the services that you give. I want you to incorporate all that information and kind of figure out how, like how valuable you really are, like how much you really know, how much you've really been trained. Yeah. And then I also want you to start thinking about the hard lessons. Now, this might be a little, might go a little deep, but think about the hard lessons. For example, those lessons that have cost you time and money that you have had to go through and now understand. Like, for example, if you've had a $5,000 worth of credit card debt, or you've spent $2,000 on a business and closed within the first year. So think about all of these mistakes you've ever made with money, and I want you to also tally that into it too, because those are big mistakes that you learn. And I think it's worth going through that because they give you a certain life experience that not a lot of people have. They give you a certain self-awareness that a lot of people are really, really lacking. Rachel says, aha, we've talked about that with me. Yeah, I overwhelmed with all the palmistry and chakras and tarot and character work. I think I'm is learning how theatrical I really am with my readings. Yeah, for sure. Like it's really just for your knowledge, and you can convey that. Well, I have a degree in theaters, and so you want to keep it short. Clients don't necessarily care about your certifications and your education. You don't want to like list it out for them and be like, this is why I'm worth what I'm worth, but you want to work that into your copywriting. You want to talk about your experiences. So like say if you're going to pitch something, when I did this, then when I did this training and this certification and I learned all of these awesome skills, I learned how to do this in such a way that's different from everybody else. And that's how you work it into your copy. It's not like you're going to itemize it for your clients and stick it up on your website because they don't care. They don't get it. It's a disconnect to them. But where it comes through is when you're talking about yourself and when you're writing your copy and you're pitching and things like that. You have to learn how to spin it. Autumn says, this is going to hurt. Yeah. I mean, it can. It can hurt a little bit. I've done my fair share of stupid stuff. I mean, I had like $3,000 worth of credit card debt. I had a car repoed. I had a car payment. Oh my gosh, I've had so much stupid stuff. I've overdrafted my account. I worked for a guy for almost a year that was um, bouncing my paychecks, and like I've done some stupid things and I've learned some hard lessons, and I think it's worth going over that and kind of looking at that and factoring it into, because it's like it's how you're smarter and wiser than the average bear who's out there doing this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So you're a little bit wiser and a little bit smarter. Okay, now here's where it gets really fun. Okay, so we've talked about what to charge for your premium package, right? It should be about 10% of everything you've ever invested into your education, time and money wise, right? Autumn says, staring at all the mistakes right in the face is hard, but it just shows how strong we all are. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Lynn says, oh my, I have done some shit that has been so painful and loss of money. Me too. I don't think anybody here is immune to that. Faye says, if I added my mistakes, my rate's double at least. Right? Right? So we've done the premium package price, right? Okay, so I want to talk about how to get your hourly rate, and not just your hourly rate, but what to charge for like your courses, what to charge for your workshops and things like that. You're gonna, at the end of this exercise, you're going to actually get a tier for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this in here, so it's easy to kind of follow along. Let me see if I have this right. I'm going to stare at my face for a minute. Okay, here's how it goes. First, I want you to write down a number. And this is just one number. I want you to write down, I'm going to do this too. I want you to write down the one number first is the most you have ever paid to invest in your business. Most you've ever paid to invest in your business. That's your life coaching certification, or that's like buying a coach in one go, in one transaction, okay? The most you've ever paid to invest in your business in one transaction. Okay, everybody have their number? You don't have to share it if you don't want to. Now, I want you to write down three values in the hundreds or thousands of dollars above that. You've paid $15,000 in one transaction for investment into your business? What did you buy for $15,000? I'm just curious. Vivian says for a course. For a course, for hiring a business coach, for a certification. Yep. I want you to write down how much you've ever spent in one transaction that invests in your business. I'm not talking about your college degree. That's for that's for the other part of it, for your premium package. I'm talking about an investment in your business. One transaction. The most you've ever spent. Does everybody have that number? Is everybody clear on that? Now, okay, Holly says the most I've ever paid in one transaction was $10,000. Okay. Vivian says $5,000. Okay, great. This is really good. Okay, so now I want you to do either in hundreds of dollars if you're at hundreds, or thousands of dollars if you're in thousands. I want you to write out three price points above that. So let's say Isabella, she did $15,000. Okay? So I want you to write out $16,000, $17,000, and $18,000. Holly, I want you to write out $11,000, $12,000, $13,000. Vivian, I want you to write out $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Rachel, I want you to write out $397, $497, $597. Jennifer, I want you to write out $4,397, $5,397, and $6,397. Okay, everybody good with that? Let me write down my numbers real quick. Okay. Okay, so Vanessa, you start at zero. Vanessa brings up a good point. If you haven't invested in your business, start at zero. So write down $100, $200, $300. Okay, so Lynn is 5,000, 6,000, and 7,000. Very good, very good. Okay, everybody's getting it. And now I want you to write down, if you aren't starting from zero, I want you to write down three values below that. Below that, okay? Very good. Now, I want you to write down how much you've ever received in one transaction from a client. How much have you ever received in one transaction from a client? And I want you to do the same thing. Always 11, 12, and 13, yeah. Nope, you can stop at zero. Rachel says even in the negatives, nope, you can stop at zero. Okay, so mine is... Okay, so I want you to take a look at the most you've ever invested in your business. I want you to take a look at those three numbers, the numbers that in one transaction. I want you to take a look at those three numbers. Is that 10% of your total amount that you've invested? What's the difference? How much is there a difference between that? So if you've invested $50,000, Holly says $5,000 for a 6-month program. That's what someone paid you. Lynn, you've made $100. Okay, very good. So I just want you to be aware of that. I just want you to look at those numbers. And I want you, because there's the energetic thing here is how much you've paid total to determine your rates, right? And then how much your rates for your premium program, and then how much you have invested in your business in one transaction. Look at that number, because that's going to be very telling of either if you're undercharging or you're overcharging for that premium package. Autumn says $4,000 difference between the 10% and the list of numbers. Okay, so you have a growth of $4,000. So this means that anything between that 10% that we originally factored in and that number that you just factored in, you have that much wiggle room to create different types of programs at different price points in that $4,000 window. Does that make sense, Autumn? So for, like Faith was asking earlier, is that your 1 month price or is that your 3 month price? That's where you find this window, and you can create different tiers of packages. So maybe that 10% is your 1 month price. Maybe that first window is your 6 month price. Maybe that next window is your year-long price. So you should charge 10% at least of the cost of your most expensive transaction. 10% of the total you've invested in your business. Yep. And at minimum, you should be charging what you have invested in one transaction. The transaction did not come close to what I spent. So there you go, Lynn, you're off. Isabella's off by $1,400. So you have a window of $1,400 that gives you a really good idea of how you can create different higher end package offers. So maybe you have a $1,400 window, Isabella. So maybe you can put something together for $500. Maybe you can put something together for, here, let me see. Let me get a calculator out. So $1,400. Maybe you have a $500. Let's do $600. Maybe you have a $600 offer, which leaves you $800. And then maybe you have a $300 offer, which gives you $500. And then maybe you have a $500 offer. So maybe you have you can do this in whatever you want to do. So maybe you have like a $200 to $300 offer. Maybe you have a $500 to $600 offer. Maybe you have around a $700 to $800 offer. And that's going to help you close that gap between the disconnect between what you have spent and what you actually have coming in and how you're pricing your services. Rachel says, so that's my membership site for a yearly cost, basically. Got a difference of $5,600. How much are you charging? How much are you wanting to charge for your membership site? Okay, so now I want you to take the average of that. So your initial price that you wrote down which was the one transaction. And now I want you to take the average of that and the most you have ever received in one. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the price that you have received, that you have paid out, You're going to take that initial price that you've paid out in one transaction that is the highest you've ever done in one transaction. And then you're going to take that one price. I'm killing you with this math. Yeah, but if you can stick with me, if you can just do it. But if you can stick with me and just work through it here, you're going to get some really good price points. Okay, so let's see. Most I ever received was 5,000. So let me see. Okay, so I have an average. So add those up. You're going to get the worksheet, so you can do this later on your own too. And then you're going to divide that by 2. You can do this on your own with the worksheet later. And if you have any questions, I can help you too. So you're going to get an average between how much you've ever paid out in one transaction and how much you've ever received in one transaction. So you're going to get an average amount. You're going to get a middle ground. And that's where you should start. So those of you who don't know what to charge, that's what you should start. charging. You should make some packages, you should make some offers in that window. Joanna says, my total is $60,000. The most I've ever paid for once for something for my biz was $2,000. Okay, so you have a window of a whole lot of money. You've paid $60,000 in one transaction for your business? It's $2,000. Okay, so you actually have a window of $4,000. So 10% of $60,000, Joanna, is $6,000. The most you ever paid once for something in your business is $2,000. So take $6,000 minus $2,000 to get $4,000. That's your window of things. So maybe you have one thing that's $1,000. Maybe you have one thing that is $2,500. Maybe you have one offer that's $5,000. And this, again, we're talking about premium pricing here. Holly says, I'm feeling a little queasy about how much I've spent on everything. Yeah, it can be very, very telling, okay? And then I want you to feel into those pricings. Like, just because I say that's what you should be charging doesn't mean that's what you need to go out and charge tomorrow. You need to also feel into that, and there's an exercise. And for the sake of respecting everybody's time, we're going to kind of move on from here, and you guys can do this on your own later tonight, okay? And basically the last question is, what did you learn about yourself and your current pricing from this exercise? Are you overcharging or undercharging? Most of you are undercharging. $16,000 is the most I've ever paid in one transaction. $85 is the most I've ever received. So you have a big window, Marissa. You have a really big window. So you need to go in and you need to finish this exercise where you're kind of, what you're going to do here is you're going to look at those prices. Remember how I had you do the 3 prices above and the 3 prices below? You're going to sit and you're going to use your body as a pendulum, and you're going to feel into these pricings. And you're going to, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being unaffected, as in like it doesn't bother you to charge this amount, and then 10 being like you're totally scared, like you would never dream of charging this amount. And then you're going to feel into that, and you're going to scale that. And what you want to do is you want to look for the prices in which that you get a number 5 on the scale, because 5 is that number where you're a little affected, but you're not too affected, and it's comfortable. It's let me backtrack. It's not comfortable. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but you can see where the growth is. Vanessa says, I've never spent anything on my business. Okay, so 0. And then the most you've ever received is $45. Okay, so right now, energetically, you are in alignment with the window from 0 to $45. So how much is your highest package? How much is your highest package? And remember, you can go up 3 hundreds of dollars past that, okay? So if you have $45, go up 3 levels, which is $145, $245, $345. So you actually can go all the way up to $345 and be in energetic alignment for that. Lynn says, undercharging for readings because my acupuncture biz is pretty much what the average price is. Yeah, that happens, especially if you're running multiple businesses. And when you guys go to do your pin post for the day, I can help you more individually, I can help you fix your numbers and kind of show you where you're at. Okay, everybody good to go ahead and move on? So you're going to do that exercise, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about ancestral healing. So when I first kind of got interested in ancestral healing, it was totally something new to me. It was totally a new concept. I didn't really get it, and I thought it was just a bunch of woo-woo, right? And I had taken marketing courses and copywriting courses and social media certification courses and, all of these things that we definitely need for our business. There's no way you can go about that. Like you definitely need those skills to be able to run a successful business. Lynn says, I don't know where to find the pin post. Are you on the email list, Lynn? Because every day I send you out a link to the pin post. So if you need added on that, let me know. Try to get with me before I send it out tonight after today's live stream. Also, the pin posts, you can find them when you go to #CYFF-day1 and CYFF-day2, CYFF-day3. There's a hashtag that you can put into the group to find them. It's the first one. Yeah, the pin post is the first one that you're going to see. Now, if you're accessing from mobile, it might be a little difficult because you have to actually like click view pin post. Rachel says, I'm finding ancestral healing does help. Feeling off all week from talking to Raziel about clearing Akashic issues with my money. So it was Raziel then. Very interesting. Very interesting. So what is ancestral healing? Okay. Ancestral healing is basically this path work. It's a path work. It's a journey. It's a spiritual type of journey that it's meant to kind of mend the broken branches in your family tree. And when you do ancestral healing, you can heal members of your current family, like you yourself right now, your children, your descendants, but also you can go back generations and you can send healing energy to at least, 7 to 9 generations. Most Native American systems and traditions, or most type of indigenous traditions, they say you can send back at least 7 generations in the past and 7 generations in the future. So it behooves you to not just do it for yourself, but to do it for your entire family tree. And as you all know, we are all related in some way, or cousins of cousins of cousins of cousins. Like, we all go back to the same ancestors, right? Eventually, if you go back far enough. So not only does it work for you, but anytime I do ancestral healing, it helps you. Anytime you do ancestral healing, it helps me. It helps all of us, right? So a lot of us know what genes are. We know that there are certain traits that are passed on with our genes, like your hair color, how tall you are, your any type of illnesses or conditions that you might have. But we also know there's more like of these abstract traits, kind of like it could be personality traits. It could be any type of way that you think about the world, any type of perspective. It could be so much. So if any of you have been like, so and so is a lot like Uncle Jimmy, or boy, doesn't this granddaughter look so much like her great Aunt Carol, or we see these not just physical traits but personality traits too. Marissa says, soul issues can be just as intense for me as ancestral. Have done a lot of ancestral healing and I'm still in the process. Yeah, it's a really big, intense thing. And really, today I just kind of want to introduce you to this concept because there's a whole other call that I did that you're going to get as a bonus call that has a meditation and I go into a little bit more depth about it. And so I really think you're going to like that. And there's also an interview with a shaman that I have, my aunt, that I think would be really, really interesting to kind of hear of a different way some people are kind of doing this ancestral healing, because there's many, many, many ways. It's not just one way to do it. There's so many different ways that you can do ancestral healing and clearing. And we think of ancestors kind of as the people that come before us, right? But I think it's also interesting and important to recognize that we are also ancestors, but in the present moment. Like, one day, again, we are going, like I said yesterday, not to get too morbid, but one day we are going to pass. We are going to leave this plane, and eventually we are going to become the ancestors of our descendants. And so, inevitably, we're going to be on the other side, eventually guiding and supporting people in our spirit form for our future generations and the generational lines that come after us. Whether it doesn't even have to be blood too. It could totally be just your inherited family. In most cases, I'm talking about a blood relationship, but it's not all cases that applies. There are some exceptions that happen here. And there will always be children, even if we don't have children ourselves. There's going to be cousins, there's going to be nieces and nephews, and there's just going to be so many people that come after us that are also going to benefit from this. Lynn says ancestral healing is heavy and something necessary, for sure, for sure. And what I found was early on, so I come from a long line of poverty mindset. I come from a long line of people thinking that they have to work really hard. That's been their beliefs. I come from a long line of people being irresponsible with money. I come from a long line of broken relationships, of unsuccessful marriages. I come from a long line of women having problems with fertility, with their womb issues, and mental issues, especially. Have bipolar and schizophrenia on both sides of my family. Very, very, very heavy. Like, not just one or two. I'm talking like out of 12 kids, there's like 7 on my dad's side that have schizophrenia, that have been diagnosed as schizophrenic. And then my grandmother, who was, a very influential person in my life, she was bipolar. And so it's not just like the physical traits that get passed down, but it's like personality, and also any type of illness also gets passed down as well. Lynn says, I think we are sisters. I think we are too. And for me, I had to get away. I didn't realize this, but I had to get away. I had to move 2,600 miles away, and I had to start a whole new life in a city that I didn't know, with people I didn't know, and I had to get away from those people. And while they loved me, they also kept me prisoner in my own mind and my own body and things. And I'm sure a lot of you can actually, relate to that, of not having a very supportive environment of people. Rachel says, I know what you mean. My maternal side loves to mention our family that we were slaves and had mental issues and everything else in the world. Yeah, so they're perpetuating this narrative, and it's up to you to kind of be that strong woman to kind of break that narrative and to rewrite that story. Autumn says, do you recommend healing those who are still around who are in poverty mindset? I'm thinking my mom, who is a toxic person for me, should I spend the time and energy on trying to heal all that, or skip back to the deceased family first? So the amazing thing about healing yourself energetically is that you're going to be healing them anyways energetically. So you healing yourself, healing them is a byproduct of that, because it goes back several generations and it goes forward several generations. So whether you choose to actually enter a healing space with that person, which you can totally do on an astral realm, you can do a guided, journey or meditation. We also call it cord cutting. I have a cord cutting meditation. If y'all feel like you would benefit from that, I will certainly give it to you and link it in today's post for you. But what it does is, yes, you can invite people and you can have conversations with them astrally. They can be people that are living, they can be people that are not living. So it's up to you how much energy you want to invest in that. But I always say that no matter what, you're still healing them anyways, even if you aren't having that like designated space and time for them personally. So either which way, they're still going to get the benefit of that. Victoria says, illness, addiction. Yeah, drugs are a big one for my family too. Legal and illegal, for sure. Passed down, they get passed down like old clothes. Yeah, I could totally understand that. Rachel says, danger with that, Autumn, is a toxic person acting like a psychic vampire to you. I'm the same boat with my mother, but just wanted to warn you. Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, there's always going to be people in our lives that we're going to have a better relationship when they pass and versus when they're alive. That's just kind of how it is. Lynn says, I'm in a town away from all my family. Holly says, I broke away from most of my family for my own sanity. Rachel says, that'd be awesome. Autumn says, oh, cool, so I can focus on me and I'll ripple out. Yes, it's very exponential like that, for sure. Yeah. I always say take care of yourself first before you take care of other people, because you are the priority, and they're still going to get the benefit from it anyway. So this is something that I realized, 11 years later. I left at 19, and so I've been away for 11 years now. I've been back, I think, maybe 3 times since I've been away. And every time I go back, it's really difficult for me because I always fall into these old patterns, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's really difficult to even go back. But at the same time, it can tell you a lot about, like, how different you are since doing that. And what I didn't realize is, when I did it, is that I was replaying a narrative that I've replayed, that my family, like, karmically, like, all the women in my family have played that out. My mom left home at a young age. My grandmother, she left her family. My aunts and uncles, they all left their family. My dad's side, because he was abusive and walked around with a gun all the time, and he was a sheriff, and so he would, point the gun at them when they were misbehaving and things like that, and they were scared and they left. And then, my father left, and it's just like, the women, especially in my family, there seems to be this rite of passage. And I'm not saying that this is right for you. Like, I'm not telling you to just get up and move and get away from your family. Like, I can't make that decision. I can't make that call for you. I can only tell you what has been my saving grace, right? And I can only tell you these patterns that I've noticed. So for me, it's really interesting. I realize as I get older that I played out this same narrative that all of the strong women in my family have done, including my aunt, who I did the interview with, which you'll get to listen to tonight. And what that does is, if you can break away physically, especially physically, it can give you that room that you need to heal. So it all kind of comes back to, if you watch that video, the 3 radical and rebellious ways that you can shift your business. I mean, if you can get away from the people that abuse you, then that's one part of ancestral healing, because you're breaking that pattern. You're not allowing that abuse to continue. Rachel says, yep, my mother walks in the room when I'm 14 and terrified again, but it slowly drifted away. Yeah, I understand. I totally understand. I totally understand. So it's interesting about ancestral healing, because what it really is, what it is, taking the mystery, not taking the magic out of it, but taking the mystery out of it, it's about making amends. It's about making amends with our ancestors. It's about making amends with our unresolved issues, about the anger that we have about them passing on. I used to be so mad at my mom. I'd be like, well, why did you even have kids if you knew your family was this messed up? Like, what gave you the right to bring children into this world that you could, And I used to be so mad at her, and I would be so mad at my father. I'm like, why weren't you smart enough to not bring children into this world that you are so messed up, Like, I was so resentful. I'm like, what gave you the right to do that, And so it comes down to making amends and kind of forgiving people for their ignorance, forgiving people for what mistakes that they have made, and just kind of saying, you know what, I'm here now. I'm going to make the best of this situation. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to try really hard to break that karmic bond that I have with these negative patterns. And what that does is it releases us from those negative patterns. It releases us from that karma and that link to them. Will we always have these issues? Yes. Will we always be traumatized? To a certain degree, yes. But we can work on healing that. We can work on resolving that, and we can work on moving forward. And like I always say, we can't change the past, but we can change the future. And that's what ancestral healing for me really boils down to. And it's such an awesome thing to do. And Marissa was touching on this a little bit earlier. She was touching upon the soul traits, right? There's also soul traits, and Rachel touched upon this too when she was talking about slavery and things like that, which are very, very serious topics. But, there's also things that are passed down, like racism and bigotry and perversion and depression and alcoholism, drug addiction, anger, all of these things that can be passed down that are not necessarily tangible things, but things nonetheless that are uncomfortable for us to deal with. And it's not just money, but it's also other things that influence our ability to make money. Does that make sense with everybody? Let me get comments up again here, because my video crashed. Okay, so we acknowledge these traits, we come to terms with them, we acknowledge that they're influencing our ability to be successful. And then from there, you can kind of figure out what areas are influencing you in a negative way, and in what areas that you need to heal in order to be able to make more money. Because money, it's so interesting. It kind of goes back to Monday when I was talking about money being neutral. It's interesting because money doesn't care if you're a good or bad person. If it did, then people who were bad people wouldn't have money. Money would be able to police itself, but money doesn't care. Money doesn't care if you're a good person or not. So it's interesting that this is all part of it, and it's like, Jennifer, got a jet. We'll catch the rest later. Yeah, we're almost done here, but I'll catch you later. I'll see you tomorrow or later tonight in the masterclass group. But I really want you to take a listen to this call that I did with a group of ladies. I did it last March with one of my first live group programs that I did. In what was that? 2015, I think, was a live group program that went through into 2016. I want you to take a look at this, and I want you to listen to it. And I talk about Archangel Raziel or Azrael. Dang it, I did it again. But I talk about Angel Azrael because it was a course about the archangels, and so if you're not an angel person, maybe you can skip that part. But I would still listen to it all and kind of just go through the guided meditation. There's a meditation where we're mending our family tree, and I just want to know what your experience is with it. I don't want to tell you too much about it because I'd rather you go through the experience of it and then just kind of see how you feel from there. And I want to hear from you how you feel different after the meditation. It's like a 50-minute call. It's really not that long. Like I said, if you want to fast forward, you can fast forward a little bit of it. And then I really want you to listen to that interview that I did with Lois, because it talks a little bit more about how it heals backwards and forwards. And it's such a great interview that I did with her. It's not very long. It's like maybe 40 minutes long. So you guys have a lot of extra stuff to do tonight. So get your numbers together, okay? And then I want you to post your numbers, post what you're spending your $10,000 on, and then I want you to also listen to these calls if and when you can. And if you can't listen to both of them, at least listen to the ancestral healing one with Azrael. And I just posted that again for everybody who needs it. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have anything that they want to say before we go ahead and end today's live stream? Tomorrow we're going to be actually going through an exercise to call in our money maven. So day 1, 2, and 3, we've done all of this work at shucking off all of this stuff that keeps us from earning our full potential. Today we talked about pricing, how to figure out where you're energetically aligned to price. And then tomorrow we're going to call in our money maven. So I'm really, really, really excited. Seems like everybody's good. Yep. Okay. All right. I will see you tomorrow.